Welcome back to another video, users. This is the F97 and this is going to be my review, having used it for about a month or so now. So I've modded it, got to know it a little bit, and I've got some thoughts on it to share with you basically, so let's get into that. Before we get into this video, don't forget to have a look at the description below at my affiliate links. If you want to get yourself an IQUNIX keyboard, you can either click on the link in the description below, which will take you to the IQUNIX website where you can do your shopping, and it'll apply the discount for you automatically when you go to checkout, or you can just use the discount code KEYFACE when you're checking out and it'll give you the same discount. So if I just run over some of the basic specifications with you, the F97 is the follow-on keyboard from the F96 from IQUNIX. It's a 96% layout, which is 100 keys. I think a normal full-size keyboard these days has 104 to 105 keys, so you aren't really missing much functionality with this one. It's just all nicely compressed down into a smaller form factor. The 100 keys of this keyboard are covered with some very nice white on black keycaps, double shot keycaps, which is, I think it's just this one and the other Dark Side, the OG80 Dark Side, the Dark Side OG80, which I also have. I think these are the only two keyboards so far that have got the double shot keycaps from IQUNIX. I'm not sure about that, but very nice keycaps, very nice addition to these keyboards. The case is aluminium. It's not the sort of real thick, heavy aluminium that you'll come to know and love with the KBD fans keyboards. It is aluminium, but just not quite as heavy as that. It's also kind of modular. The back and the sides will all come apart if you take these screws out. So it's kind of like a modular aluminium case, if you like, as opposed to one of those really heavy KBD fans ones. It has the standard tri-mode connection that you get with IQUNIX keyboard, which is obviously the 2.4 gigahertz dongle, the 5.1 Bluetooth, and then just a USB-C cable. It's got 4,000 milliamp hours of battery capacity, so you can run full blast on RGB for much longer, or you can get thousands of hours if you run without RGB, which is a really good performance. Unlike some of the other kind of 75-80% keyboards that IQUNIX sell, this one is built to mod in terms of the fact that it's a plate mount case, so it's really easy to take apart, which I'll show you quickly later on. And for €20 extra, you get full RGB. The RGB on IQUNIX keyboards is just absolutely outstanding. I love it. You can either opt without it and save yourself €20 or $20, or you can go for the full RGB, and it just costs you that extra €20. Well worth it in my opinion. So that's enough, I think, for the specifications. You can check it all out on the website. So the way I would describe the F97 from IQUNIX is kind of a sleek and stylish, minimalistic looking keyboard. It would go particularly well in either kind of a dark minimalistic kind of setup with dark woods and blacks, and it would go equally well as like a kind of centerpiece of like a very light setup as well. But it would go very well in any kind of setup. I think it suits minimalistic well because it's got a very sort of clean and crisp look to it. It plants itself well in a desk. It's a burly boy with sort of 1200 grams of weight, and then a nice kind of subtle 6-degree angle, which just really plants it well into the desk, makes it a real solid feeling keyboard. Like all IQUNIX keyboard, it looks the high quality keyboard that it is, and it feels just as nice, especially out of the box. This is a really good keyboard out of the box. Now this keyboard, and more specifically this layout keyboard, lends itself well to certain users, and perhaps if you really think about it, it doesn't really appeal to other people. So something that I don't normally do in other videos is I'm just going to run through who this keyboard would suit and who, in my opinion, I don't think it would suit. So first off, let's go through who this keyboard would be made for, and first is people that just want to buy a nice solid mechanical keyboard to get that kind of lovely mechanical feel, mechanical switches, but don't want to do any modding. You don't need to mod this keyboard really, unless you're really fussy like me. The switches come pre-lubed, the stabs come pre-lubed. It's just good to go out of the box. So that's the first person who this is for, is someone who doesn't want to mod it, but wants just a nice mechanical keyboard to use. The second would be people who are used to full layouts but just want to compact it down a little bit. It would definitely suit those people who don't want to lose too much functionality because they use programs like Word and perhaps Excel. Like Excel spreadsheets and stuff lend themselves well to having like a little number pad on the end of the keyboard there. So I think it would really suit those people that like to use full-size keyboards but are just looking to compress it down, use something a bit different, just something a bit more custom and with mechanical switches. And then thirdly, for who this is for, is it's exactly for someone like me. Like I do all of those types of office work, like I said just now. I use Word, I use Excel, but I'm also a custom keyboard enthusiast, so I can buy this, I can mod it to my taste, and then I've got a full sort of almost a full layout keyboard sat on my desk that can be kind of my workhorse machine. So it really lends itself well to people like me who do office style work, use their computers for work, but also enjoy customizing their keyboards and would go to the lengths of customizing a keyboard this size to get the feel that they're looking for. So with that, let's go on to who this keyboard is probably not for, and the first one seems pretty obvious to me. It's not for gamers, I don't think, because even though it will perform perfectly well as a gaming keyboard with the N key rollover and stuff like that, and it will look the part with the RGB, it's too big, there's too many functions on here. It's going to take up a lot more real estate on a gamer's desk, and it's going to have far more redundant functions that they don't want. So gamers are going to prefer sticking to sort of 60% size keyboards, and this isn't going to be really on their radar to buy this, I wouldn't say. Second is, I wouldn't say it's for most custom keyboard enthusiasts. Now the reason for that is, unless you really like spending a lot of time customizing your keyboards, I'm kind of somewhere in between. I like spending the time, I like taking as much time as I need to on the keyboard, but I also like to get it done. I always look forward to using the keyboard after I finish modding it. And the problem with this is that for most custom keyboard enthusiasts, you've got 100 switches to film and lube and whatever you're going to do. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 stabilizers to sort out. Everything's just much bigger. Everything's just going to take you much more time to get it to a place that you want to. So for a lot of custom keyboard sort of modders, it's not going to be a keyboard for them, unless you just want, like me, 1 or 2 in the collection to use as your workhorse kind of, your keyboard that you're going to use for your work. Now third, something that I don't like about this keyboard, and it's not the fault of the keyboard at all, it's just something to do with the layout, is that I am a bit OCD now about my desk. I like having my desk set up exactly how I like it, so as I sit down and I just start typing. And the problem with a keyboard like this, going back to something that's almost kind of a full-size keyboard, is that I like to sit with the space bar and the typing part of the keyboard directly under my chin. So I've got to kind of offset the keyboard like you'll see in the screen now, so as I'm dead centered to the center of the space bar. Obviously the problem with that is that I've got to go like this every time I want to sort of go from using the keyboard to sort of looking at the keyboard, not using my desk, if you like, and it kind of makes your setup a little bit too asymmetrical for me. I don't really like having the keyboard offset like that. I'm much more, I much prefer having a keyboard that's sort of 60%, 65%, 80%, so as I can center it under my chin, and that's where it will stay and look good on the desk. So it's a bit finicky, that one, but it's just something worth keeping in mind for those of you out there that might have a bit of OCD like me. So now I just want to give you kind of my straight up opinion on how the keyboard is. I know a lot of the above has been my opinion, but what I like to do is I don't like to sort of sit on the fence with these products and say, oh, it's about your preference. Of course, everything to do with everything you buy is your personal preference, but I take the fact that you're here watching my video as sort of a statement that you want to hear my opinion on the keyboard. So that's what I'm going to give you. And for me, the IQUNIX F97 is another high quality keyboard from IQUNIX. I bought the first IQUNIX keyboard, which was the IQUNIX L80, because it looked so unique. I love the fact that you can tell an IQUNIX keyboard out from a lineup of keyboards, because they really do look unique. There's nothing really else on the market apart from a few copycats popping up now that look the same as IQUNIX. There's nothing generic about it. It's a very unique looking set of keyboards. I bought the second IQUNIX keyboard that I bought because of how good the first one was, like the feel and the typing experience of IQUNIX keyboard. Again, just like the look and the aesthetic of the keyboard is very, very unique to IQUNIX keyboards. I really like that. So that's the reason that I bought the third IQUNIX keyboard, which is this one, and the reason that I've actually gone on to buy a 4th, 5th and 6th IQUNIX keyboard Is that right? Yeah, 4th, 5th and 6th IQUNIX keyboards is because of how much better they seem to be getting to me. This is, like, all of the keyboards are good, but they are getting better every time I buy one, so it just keeps me sort of coming back for more. They're fantastic keyboards. Talking specifically about this keyboard, the aluminium case, the aluminium plate, the fact that it's planted on the desk with these feet that don't adjust, the PBT keycaps, it all makes for a really kind of punchy and clacky typing experience. I really like aluminium case keyboards. I've got nothing against gasket keyboards, I really like those too, but I really like aluminium keyboards just to give you a bit of variety on your shelf. They make for a much more kind of solid sort of feeling keyboard that's got a much more harsh bottom out, which I really like. So yeah, basically I would highly recommend getting this keyboard and any IQUNIX keyboard. I think they're fantastic, and that's my personal opinion. I've bought all my keyboards, I've got a bit of discount on them here and there, but I buy all my IQUNIX keyboards because I can't get them to give me one. But I really think that they're fantastic and well worth investing in. So yeah, again, don't forget to use my affiliate links below if you want to get yourself one. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to speed all of this up and show you how to dismantle the keyboard, and while I'm doing that, while I put it back together, I'll show you how I've modded this one, and then you'll get kind of like a before and after typing test at the end of that. Okay, so as you can see there on the overhead, that is the keyboard completely stripped down to its component parts. I haven't stripped it down completely actually, that's an exaggeration. All the stabilizers are still in, most of the switches are still in, but this is to a point where I can just show you exactly what modifications I've done. So what I'll do is, as I put this back together again, I'll tell you exactly what modifications I've done to the keyboard. So the foam was actually in the keyboard, I didn't have to do any modding there, and it's a nice size foam, it's not too thick. And it fits perfectly, obviously, in terms of thickness for this keyboard. I didn't feel the need to do anything there, so that's just as is. If we now come on to the plate and PCB assembly, I'll flip it over and hope that the screws don't fly out. I've taped up the back of the PCB there, so that's the Tempest mod, or the tape mod as it's known. Yeah, great mod to do, and I went for it on this keyboard. If I flip it over, you can see in the 3 switches that I've taken off, hopefully that's in focus for you there, I've basically done the PE foam mod, so the whole keyboard has got a sheet of PE foam in the back there, and then all the switches have got the hole cut out and the switches are in there to give it that kind of nice creamy feel, which actually kind of offsets the kind of clackiness, the harshness of an aluminium keyboard nicely and gives it a nice middle ground. So let's get the plate and PCB back in there. This little wire here had me confused. I'm not sure if this is I guess it's probably an earth wire or something to earth it against the case. You just kind of stick it up in the back there as you put the board back together, and then just drop that in there like so. One thing to note while I'm putting it back together is you can see, like a lot of IQUNIX keyboard, and Melgeek do a similar thing actually, I guess a lot of keyboard manufacturers do, is those 2 keycaps, or those 2 switches there, are north facing. Most of the rest, in fact all of the rest over this side, south facing, so suitable for cherry keycaps is what I'm getting at. And then these 2, the LED is facing left, so I don't know how cherry keycaps will do with sideways switches. I need to look that up, and if I come up with an answer, actually I'll stick it on the screen, but that's just worth noting. And on the switches, I lubed and filmed every single one of these 100 switches, and like I say, that's one of the down sort of sides of a keyboard this size, is that by comparison to sort of a 65%, 60% mechanical keyboard, you're doing another sort of 40% of the work. Sort of 70-80% keyboard, you've got an extra sort of 20 switches to do, so it's quite a bit more work, and especially with this one with the stabilizers. On the stabilizers, there's not a lot that I do with Co-Star stabilizers. You can tape up every single end and sort of there's a little bit of play in these, and you can take that out with tape. I've found in the past that pinches them together too much and creates too much sort of tightness in between the stem or the slider, if you like, and the housings. I don't like that mod unless I really have to, unless there's lots and lots of slack, then I will do that mod, but I don't, generally speaking now. So the only thing that you can do, and that I think that you really need to do, is I just lube the sort of housings, or the sliders or the stems, if you like, as I put it back together every time, and re-lube them as they need it. So let's do that now quickly. So you'll see there that a lot of the lube stays there. It just works its way out as you'd expect through use. The lube will move around, and that rattle will come back to a degree, even though a thin film will stay on it. So what you just need to do is reapply / kind of push that lube back in between the wire and the slider or the stem again, which is what I'm doing now. I'm just going to completely fill that gap, so as I know that the wire will get completely coated again. And then when you install these, I was always reluctant to do it because it felt like it would bend the stems, but you can't really straighten these, sorry, not stems, the wires. You can't really straighten these wires because of the form factor that they have anyway, so it's difficult. You could kind of square these two off against each other if you really wanted to, but I think it's less important on these stabilizers. So when you remove and put them back together, I tend to just slide them on now. Instead of taking the wires out every time, you just need to slide into one end of the wire, and then then the other side of the keycap will drop into the other side, and it's locked on there. Then you just kind of fold it in and stick it on. So I'm just going to do all of these while I've got it apart, because it's worth doing every time you take these keycaps off. And that's one of the reasons that lots of people don't like CoStar stabs. They're just awkward. They're much better if you take all the switches out and give yourself a bit more room to maneuver. But yeah, the two things that with CoStar switches, which I've covered numerous times in the past, are one, that they're very awkward to take apart, and two, while they sound very good just lubed to get rid of rattle alone, it doesn't last forever. Eventually the lube will move around and that rattle will come back to some degree, so you can't really apply like a permanent fix like the Holy mod or something like that to IQUNIX, to CoStar stabilizers, as far as I know, but they do sound good stock. So I'll give you an example of how they sound just kind of freshly lubed. I've got my fan on, but hopefully you should get half decent audio. I've got a proper typing test without obviously a fan going in the background. It's just roasting in Spain at the moment, so yeah, need the fan. But yeah, let's have a listen. Yeah, so you can hear there, they just sound really, really good, freshly lubed, a set of CoStar stabs. So that's nothing else done to them whatsoever, just lube. Just another point to pick up on while I'm just about to put it back together is you can't really see it very clearly ever on camera, but IQUNIX are another company that use these plates. I think it's an aluminium plate just with a paint job on it, kind of like a matte paint job. I really don't like that because you scratch it on a hot swappable keyboard when you're using your switch puller, when you're using your switch puller to get the switches out. Invariably you do some kind of damage to the paint job, and I would just prefer to see, like the KBD fans, aluminium plates. They're not painted or treated. You can get them anodized in different color, but that's different to a paint job, and it's much more difficult to put scratches in it. So that's one thing about the plate. And now let's get the rest of the keyboard back together. Okay, so that's the strip down and run through the mods and reassembly complete. So now I'll take you through the sound test with a comparison to before and after the mods. And that is it. I hope you enjoyed the video. Drop me a like and a subscribe if you did. I highly recommend the IQUNIX F97 if you're looking for something with all of this functionality but with such a nice aesthetic and typing experience, feel and sound. Yeah, nothing else to go over really. Thanks a lot for watching and I'll catch you in the next one.